Hi guys, great to be here with you today. I hope you've enjoyed your summer holidays. Maybe you've been able to get away for a little bit. Maybe you've been able to meet up with some people and enjoy the hot weather we've had. Last week was our last video on Heroes of Faith, and I hope you guys have been focused on Jesus just like they did. This week we're moving on to a new topic for our videos. I know that the series on James was popular, and so for the next few weeks we'll be looking at the book of 1 Peter. 1 Peter can be found straight after the book of James in the Bible. 1 Peter was written by, you've guessed it, Peter. Peter was one of Jesus' disciples, although originally called Simon. Peter was a fisherman, and with his brother James, they were fishing one day, and Jesus came by and said in Matthew 4:18, "Come follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." And they both dropped their nets and followed him straight away. Peter was the first disciple Jesus called. He also was a disciple that walked on water. Jesus once called Peter Satan, telling him to get behind him. Peter was the disciple that denied Jesus 3 times. And amazingly, after all that, Peter was called the rock on which I will build my church by Jesus in Matthew 16:18. Peter then went on to write this letter called 1 Peter to all those scattered and persecuted Christians around modern day Turkey, and was written to give hope, guidance, and just to encourage them. The first part I want to focus on is about hope. Peter starts by telling them where they can find their hope. He says in 1 Peter 1:3-4, "Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. In his mercy he has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, and into an inheritance that can never perish, spoil or fade." Peter is saying that we can have a living hope, and that is Jesus, by the fact that he rose from the dead, and so we have an inheritance waiting for us that will never go away. Which is a pretty good way to start a letter to all those going through difficult times, knowing that there's hope and his name is Jesus. Peter goes on to talk about in verse 6 that they may have to have suffered grief and all kinds of trials, which does sound a little familiar to what it is like for us at the moment. Many of us have been suffering grief in all kinds of trials, suffering from not seeing people, from loneliness, from being stuck in a bad routine, suffering from difficult family situations, from not getting the results you wanted, or from actually losing someone close to you. I think we've all suffered in some way because of the lockdown, and Peter is saying that it is in those times is when our faith is really tested. It is when things aren't going our way that we can really tell the genuineness of our faith. Do we still bring praise, glory and honour to Jesus in those times, or is it just in the good times we do that? The whole first part is about a living hope. Where do we find our hope in times of suffering? Peter is saying that our hope is found in Jesus, not in gold or earthly things which perish and do not last, but our hope is in Jesus, in his resurrection, that he conquered death and rose again, and through our faith in him we can have the inheritance waiting for us. We all go through difficult times, and not just nowadays, but for the first Christians 2,000 years ago as well. And the answer has always been the same. We find our hope in Jesus. He is our living hope.